My name is Funton Daniel, here in the great state of Texas. I have just laid out a blueprint, and which outline a theoretical framework for Africa, the 21st century. There are key factors, and before I move on to talk about those key indicators or factors that to move Africa to the 21st century independence, the first we look at the Chinese. When in the 80s, China leadership changed the structure of its economic policy. And the greatest condemnation came from International Monetary Fund. They call it International Monetary Fund. I call it International Monetary Fraud System. The system was well calculated, designed. The purpose was not for the interests of Africa at heart. The purpose was to glue Africa and subvert Africa to the lowest as it is. It makes Africa a more unrealistic. In other words, the financial aspect does not provide the room for growth of Africa for the 21st century. And that is why I always look at China. How does China growth become not only the second superpower, but a financial hub for the rest of the world? So the key glue of Africa is the infrastructural development and the currency availability. The Europeans restricted Africa in such a manner that it's like you just cut off the oxygen, so African is difficulty to breathe. When the lung doesn't have access to energy, to exchange of carbon dioxide and gas, so basically you are left without oxygen, and sometimes they place you on high flow oxygen. So basically, it's just help to sustain you. But how long are you going to be sustained? It's a matter of days, times. But if we can produce the oxygen naturally and able to breathe naturally, then we can liberate. And so that is a layman and understanding about what I am trying to explain, how Africa can move forward. So now let's go back to the China situations. In the 1980s, China decided to flood its currency independent of the world norms. And the area they flooded the currency in university research, renovation, and technology. It started from the base, that is the children from the lower levels, including the children, their education system, and availability for access to those research. And the children were influenced and giving them every preconditions to promote, ensure that they can strive, and from childhood. And within a short space of time, that renovations has changed China to become the superpower from 1980s to the current era. So how can Africa transform? The area is clear. First, we need to cut ties of the IMF, because IMF African to glue, like they have no voice, they can't speak on their own, is to create an independent financial monetary system that is able to promote currency availability. and transparency and independence. So, in other words, all the various infrastructural development should be tied to the currency availability and promote African brain development. We are ready to transform, but we can only do this if we lay out the groundwork, the foundations. Let's look at resources. There's resources. To convert resources from area of production to the area of availability and transformation to natural resource has been impacted by road network. So we are not borrowing to carry on infrastructural development. We are borrowing to transform Africa. In order to do that, Africa needs to create an independent currency. The currency that is not tied to IMF, World Bank. It is independent floating system that demand and supply equilibrium system should be the focal mechanism and must be grounded on the goal. Goal is the key factor, not tied to France, not tied to Great Britain, not tied to the rest of the world, but gold is the key factor. We don't need to borrow gold. We have gold, and gold is the standard for Bretton Woods system, and therefore should be the background of the currency system. It is quite seeing the amazing people of Africa suffering, crossing into Europe to look for greener pasture when the greener pasture is actually in Africa. And so the only way moving forward is that of an independent monetary system, a currency that is not regulated by IMF, but independent, regulated by the Africans itself. And it is the key force that Africa must, in any aspect, look to this and promptly drastic action and ensure that it is available for all Africans, infrastructural development. So I shall be speaking on the theoretical aspect of this, and so when I share this video, make sure you follow me, make sure you share, and make sure you read the blueprint that is attached to it. So make sure you read, not just scan through and move along, but read and share, because we need to create the blueprint moving forward. So there will be a write-up, the theoretical framework, and that is part of this video. So I just give a headline so that everyone should take note and start reading and looking, exploit how Africa must move forward. And thank you for reading, and thank you for watching, and thank you. Always make sure you indicate where you're reading and what part of reform you expect from me, and look forward to communicating with you, fellow Africans, for the 21st century. My name is Fonda Daniel, here in the great state of Texas, here in the United States. Wonderful and happy Memorial Day.